Hey, what's up YouTube? Here's another video by Ratchets and Wrenches, and today I'm going to show you how to adjust your valve lash on a 2005 Honda Civic with the 1.7 liter single overhead cam engine. I'm going to assume this procedure is going to be somewhat similar to most Hondas, at least with the 4-cylinder engines. I'm not too familiar with the V6s they make, but yeah, you'll obviously need to take off the valve cover to get to the valve, to the rocker arms and the adjusting screws that goes on in them. So and this valve cover, it's a little bit, the procedure for taking it off is a little bit more involved, so we're going to go through that, and then I'll show you how to adjust your valves. Okay, so since we're going to be disconnecting the cables for the alternator and removing a bunch of ignition coils and whatnot, we need to disconnect the negative side of the battery and safely tuck it aside. Okay, next we're going to remove this this cover. Go. Let's remove our oil dipstick. Okay, so in order to remove this valve cover, we first need to remove this wiring harness that's running from the alternator here up on top of the valve cover, and it's got all the wires for the ignition coils. So we need to remove all this stuff and then grab it and pull it aside. Also, we need to remove these cables for the cruise control, and then there's about, I think, 5 or 6 bolts that hold on the valve cover to the cylinder head. But what we're going to do next is actually remove this bracket that's holding these wires for the valve cover for the cruise control. Okay, next we need to remove the wires that are going to our alternator. First, we're going to remove that green connector. This is a 10mm nut that was holding this in. Okay, well, this plastic piece is actually held in here too, so I'm gonna figure this out, how to get this out of here. There we go. Yeah, just press on that tab, press that down, and then slide it this way. Okay, so in order to get this wire harness through here, we're gonna have to remove this bracket that's holding this AC line in, and also there's a little plastic clip here that holds this AC line in. We're going to disconnect next, and then pull on this and then get this through. And this is also 10mm. There's that. And in order to get this out of this plastic bracket, just pull on this, just pull out. There we go. Yeah, you can play with these a little bit, but don't force it, okay? So yeah, so we just get this here, pop this out. Next, there is 2 10mm bolts, one here and one on this side, that we need to take out. Also, these 10mm nuts that are holding our ignition coils in, and we're going to remove this as one unit. Okay, actually it seems to me we need to unclip this at the top here too. Okay, and the way we're gonna disconnect this is we need to get something like this in here. Just press it out and then pull. And as you can see, when you press it out, this clip unlatches from there, and then our harness is free. Okay, before we can grab that and pull this aside, we need to disconnect these little 2 connectors here as well. Should come out without much trouble. There's another one here. You guys, there we go. Easy enough. Okay, everything should come out as one piece. There we go. Pretty good. I'm just gonna set this aside. Almost there. Okay, next up, 5 valve cover bolts that are also 10mm. Okay, Okay, you know what? We actually do have to remove this PCV hose because it's not gonna let us remove our valve cover. There we go. Okay, now we get this. Now we get to this wiring harness off, and now we should be able to remove our valve cover. There we go. Okay, looks like I forgot to take out some stuff. This bracket here, it's held into the valve cover by a 10mm bolt. That's for this AC line and power steering pump needs to come out. So we're just going to take that bolt out and remove this bracket. Also this one, this little small bracket, that was for the wiring harness. That also needs to be taken off. It's also held in by 10mm. There's this. And there's this guy. It's also held in by some RTV silicone on the corners. So there we go. All right. Okay, and before we go any further, I think I need to remind people to, if you're going to be adjusting your valve lash, you need to let the car sit overnight and let it properly cool, because if you're measured on when it's warm, you know, the metal expands and you're not going to get an accurate reading. Okay, so to set the engine at top dead center, and then we're gonna need to turn the engine for adjusting the valve lash on each cylinder. So we're gonna take off this upper timing belt cover, which is gonna make life easier looking at the camshaft. And first you need to remove the camshaft sensor. First take out this rubber cover, and then we just take out the connector, which should come out easy. Looks something like that. Then there's 3 bolts that hold this upper timing cover in. There's one here, and then one here, which is hard to see for you guys, but you need to take those out next. Okay, so next we need to put our engine at top dead center, which is, whenever you say top dead center, putting an engine at top dead center, you're putting cylinder number 1 at top dead center. And in order to do that, we need to first remove our wheel, jack up the car, support it by a jack stand, remove our wheel. Don't forget to put on your emergency parking brakes. And then we need to, well, I've removed the splash shield, but as you can see, there's an opening there that you could get your ratchet through. And I believe it's a 19mm bolt, this crank bolt. It is. And this engine turns counterclockwise, so you want to turn this counterclockwise, which is this way, until our top dead center markings line up. Okay, and in order to line up our top dead center marking, our top dead center marks on the lower timing belt cover, as you can see, there's a notch here, and right below that there's an arrow. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that. You need to line those up, and then there will be marks on this harmonic balancer. There's going to be a couple of marks. You want to line these up with the, as you're turning this counterclockwise, you want to line them up with the last mark, which is, I believe, marked yellow on this harmonic balancer. And also you want to make sure on this camshaft where it says up, which is right here, this ends up when you line up those marks up ends up here, and then there's going to be 2 notches on this camshaft, one here and one directly crossed, and they need to line up exactly with top of the cylinder head. That's how you know you are at top dead center for cylinder number 1. Okay, so again, this must point up where it says up on the camshaft, and these notches need to be exactly aligned with top of the cylinder head. Alright. Okay, and here's a look at the markings that are behind the camshaft gear that will make life easier when you go to line them up with top of the cylinder head. If I can get this camera to focus, there we go. So yeah, that needs to line up with top of the cylinder head. There's another one like this exactly on this other side of this camshaft gear that is not going to be easy to see. There, right there. That yeah, so those need to line up with top of the cylinder head, and the marking in front of the camshaft gear looking at it from the other side, it should say up, and now you're at top dead center. Okay, and for people out there that don't know how a camshaft and a rocker arm system work on a car, I'm going to give you a very high-tech demonstration of this. I got a camshaft. This is out of a Honda Elantra, which is a dual overhead cam, which that means you got one cam for your exhaust valves and one cam for your intake valves. That car happens to have lifters, which not rocker arms, but the camshafts look the same, and this will do for trying to demonstrate how they work. Basically, your rocker arms are riding. Okay, let's say my finger is the rocker arm and my thumb is your valve, and they're connected here. That's where you do your adjustment, by the way. But the way it works is your rocker arm is going to be riding on this top of this cam lobe, this is what is your cam lobe, and that's riding on top of it. And as your engine turns, your camshaft turns, and it comes up. This cam lobe is going to push this rocker arm up, which in turn will push your valve down, and that will open up your valve depending on which valve it is. If it's the intake valve, it will open it up for intake, for air to get through, and if it's your exhaust valve, it will open up for exhaust fumes to get out. Okay, and this is, well, on this engine, again on this cam, we got these two for this. I believe this is the exhaust cam, so these two are going to be for the exhaust side on one cylinder, and then this is for the next. But if you have a one single overhead cam, which is what we're working on here, this Honda, you'll have your exhaust and the intake cam lobes on really close to each other, and they will just all be on one camshaft. Okay, so like how on this you have eight cam lobes, which are for your 8 exhaust valves, you would have on this engine you have 16, and 16 of these guys, and for each cylinder, again 2 work for the exhaust, and then 2 right next to them work for the intake side. And the reason you have space between your rocker arm and your valve is that if you didn't have space, this would be grinding away at this cam lobe. This would be riding on this really hard, and this would be, you would have this would wear out really quick and a lot sooner than if you didn't have space. This will make contact as this turning up, and as your camshaft turns up, and it will ride on this. But it's just better that all the other times that this camshaft is turning, and this tip of this cam lobe is not forcing your rocker arm to turn and open up your valve, that this doesn't, there's no pressure on this cam lobe, so this doesn't wear out prematurely. Next, I'm going to show this how it works on the car. Actually, probably get a better idea. Okay, and here's what it looks like on this car. On the top, these are not your camshaft. These are there so that your rocker arms can pivot on them. Your camshaft is actually underneath there, and these are the end of your rocker arms that are riding on your camshaft. And as you can see, this camshaft, the 4 cam lobes for number 1 cylinder are all right here. Okay, and these are for your exhaust. These open up your exhaust valve, which are here, and these 2 are for your intake valve, and there's your intake manifold that let air through. Okay, and when you're at top dead center on cylinder number 1, it means there has to be play here, because all your valves need to be closed, because that's where the combustion is going to happen. And yeah, you don't want any valves open because you lose compression, and that's why you can feel the play at the end of these rocker arms. Okay, so obviously before you start adjusting your valves, you want to measure the clearance, and the way you measure the clearance is basically you get your feeler gauge, and your clearance, your spec for your clearance is going to be always different from your exhaust to your intake. You want to make sure you check your manual. I'm not sure, but I believe for this engine on the exhaust side it's 0.009 thousandths of an inch to 0.011 thousandths of an inch. So for the exhaust side, I believe for this engine is 0.009 to 0.011 thousandths of an inch. So we get our feeler gauge, and you want to shoot for the middle. So I got 0.010 here, and you just stick it right here. And basically you want some drag when you're doing this, but you don't want this to be like, you know, you don't want to be able to turn, you know, just move this around way too freely. And let's say this is either too tight or too loose, and you know, if it's loose enough that you can, you know, put like let's say 0.013 or 4 thousandths of an inch, and you can, it just has low drag, that means you need to tighten it and bring it down to where your, you know, this 0.01 thousandths of an inch feeler gauge is got some drag, and you know, it feels nice and, you know, it feels nice and snug. And the way you go about doing that is you need to get a 10mm wrench on this nut and get your screw on here, screwdriver here. This screwdriver will keep this the screw that inside here in place, and then you loosen that nut, and once this nut is loosened, you can start adjusting the screw. And as you turn this clockwise, this will decrease the space that's between your rocker arm and your valve, and as you turn this counterclockwise, this will move up inside the rocker arm and increase the space between there. So that's how you do adjusting. It's a good idea to have a feeler gauge in there while moving it around. You start adjusting, and I'm not gonna go through adjusting this engine, but if I was honest, I would say this 0.010 was feeling way too loose in there. So I'm just gonna see, now it's got some more drag and it still moves fairly freely in there. So, and as you can see, that didn't take a whole lot of turning, so that's enough. And then to tighten it, it's basically the reverse, but you want to keep your screwdriver on top of the screw so it doesn't move while you're turning this this nut. And the torque spec for this nut, I believe it's about 14 foot-pounds. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we want to do that same adjustment for this valve, and then these two intake valves. Obviously, again, the spec for the clearance is different for the intake to the exhaust. And after we do that, we are done with cylinder number 1, and it's on to the next cylinder that we need to put at top dead center. The way you put the next cylinder in the firing order at top dead center is you turn your camshaft exactly 90 degrees. How do you know you turn your crankshaft 90 degrees? Well, this mark that's on this side, let me get a close up again. That notch that's on the back of the camshaft, you turn your crankshaft counterclockwise until that notch comes exactly here. And if you're looking directly from above, it lines up with this guy right here. That's how you know you turn this 90 degrees. And that's when you do that, you put the next cylinder in the firing order at top dead center, and then you can do the adjustment for that cylinder. Okay. Okay, so here's how it's gonna look. See that notch over there? It's exactly at the top of right here. That means you've turned this 90 degrees, and when you do that, you get the next cylinder in the firing order, which in our case is cylinder number 3. At top dead center. And now you do adjustments for this cylinder, for the exhaust and the intake. Okay, and obviously to get the next cylinder in the firing order to top dead center, you turn this another 90 degrees, and then you can again go back to lining these notches up to the top of the cylinder head. And when you do that, you get the next cylinder, which is going to be cylinder number 4 at top dead center. And to get the last one, again, you turn that 90 degrees, get that notch to line up to on the top here, and that would be for your cylinder number 2. And you do all your adjustments, and then you're done. Then you just put your valve cover back on. Don't forget to, if you have a leak, it's a good time to replace your valve cover gasket. And if you don't have a leak, you just need to clean up this old silicone gasket maker material that's on the corners here, and back here and back there. And then apply a thin layer of silicone gasket maker here, the same corners you just took off the old one, and then slap your valve cover on here, and you should be good to go. Okay, so hope this video helps people out there. If you have any comments, suggestions, please leave them below. And if you liked the video, let's give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.